Test score is always kind of, I think, gotten away. It'll be interesting this year because a lot of people will be operating without test scores for the first time, and they're going to have to pay attention to different things. If they just count up the number of AP classes or the grade point average, they should have to listen, and that may do them a lot of good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Parent Compass on Smart Social Podcast. We are so excited about our guest today, who is Ted O'Neill, who is affectionately also known as some special nicknames, Guru, Philosopher King, and the God of Admissions. I don't know if you knew that about yourself, Ted, but Ted has an amazing history in the world of college admissions and in teaching. He began his career as a teacher and then later worked in Chicago public schools, and then later worked for many years at the University of Chicago, up through the rankings of the admissions office there to the Dean of College Admissions from 1997 to 2007. And since then, he's been teaching at the University of Chicago and also served as the head of admissions at Bard College and Bard College in Berlin. So we welcome you and everything you're going to share with us today. So thank you. I should add that Ted hired me for my pretty much very first job out of college. And I think I would still be there working with you if we hadn't had to move away. So I loved my time at the University of Chicago admissions office. I learned so much from you. And I thank you for helping start my career in the world of education. It was really a great experience.
You're welcome.
So anyway, maybe we'll start a little bit, Ted, if you could talk to us a little bit about your observations on looking back on your career in college admissions. What did it look like at the beginning, and then maybe what did it evolve into? And do you have any observations in particular on the role that parents may have also played in the college admission process and how that might have changed through the years?
Well, I think one thing that's changed is scale, and scale can change everything. I remember a time when we had not many applications in Chicago, which is what I'm speaking of. I had a little bit of experience with admissions earlier at another place, but I worked at University of Chicago for 40 years. And what changed were many things changed and changed profoundly. But to look at it simply, the simple scale changed. I mean, we started to deal with many more applications. There was a natural growth, and then there was what I think of as an unnatural growth. There was growth because the world we were speaking to enlarged in terms of students who were first generation to college, students of different races, students of different, international, and that naturally brought more people in. And then, of course, we did what we could to encourage that. Initially, at a time when there were downturn in the number of students graduating from high school, we worked harder to promote ourselves. We became more professional at it. We became marketers rather than in addition to, let's say, admissions people. And we learned marketing tricks. We had more tools. The internet, of course, intervened. In some ways, a very good thing. Students had more access to knowledge, and in some ways a bad thing. More persuadable than we even knew they were. And we did what we could to persuade them. So what happened was there were many, many more applications. In some ways a very good thing, in some ways not so good. Gave us less time to consider brought in more applicants who were inappropriate, who were simply swept in by the desire for a good college or by the marketing. And it became less predictable. And when things became less predictable, less rational, people were made very nervous. And among the people who were made very nervous were the parents, maybe more so. And I think, parents are parents. I'm not sure they change a lot. Maybe you think they do. I think your book suggests maybe they have changed in response to the changing world. That makes sense. But, as you said, basically parents want the best things for their children. They want them to be happy. They want them to be successful. They intervene more now than they used to. I think you've convinced me, your own work has convinced me that that's true. They don't always know what their proper role is. They do too much. They take too much out of their hands of their children. But some of this is understandable given the fact that admissions became almost a game of chance. When you talk about Stanford, Yale, Chicago getting admit rates down in the or under range, you don't really know what's going to happen. Who knows what works when only 5% of a very strong group of applicants are admitted to a school. Predictions are they're off. And parents wanting the best, many of whom who have been brought up to believe in numbers, is to understand this now almost ununderstandable process. So not to say that students aren't aware of numbers, they are, but things have been distorting, and a lot of bad information is conveyed by a belief in the ratings. And parents seem to be, not that it's only parents, everyone seems susceptible to the ratings, even though we all cry the rating, even our own faculties, some even the ratings, even those at the center of the process think, oh, you mean if we're now higher, we're actually better? They have to know, no, we're not better, we're not different. The numbers have simply, or different numbers have been attended to. But so yes, things have changed. Not all for the good. In some ways for the good. This is a more open world of college admissions than it used to be.
You have made a big effort to make the college application process personalized. And I think it's sort of related to what you were just saying. Can you help us understand what that looks like from your perspective? And I imagine that's a really difficult task to take. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, we achieved a certain fame or infamy at Chicago by having our own application. You know, this was in the face of the incredible growth of the Common Application. The Common Application is very useful. It makes things easier for people. It probably opens the process up to people who've previously felt excluded. But we thought at Chicago that the kind of information we were getting from a more generalized process wasn't adequate to what we needed. We needed to hear people speaking to us, kind of greedy. We wanted them looking at us and saying, you, Chicago, I understand, and here are the reasons why you might want me in your school and why I might want to be there. You can't do that if you're applying to 20 places, sending the same application, even with supplements, which are usually, in my mind, pretty bland and misleading. So we wanted people so we talked to them in our application. I think we treated them respectfully. We gave them real language. And it was language that could be turned to say, well, this place sounds good for someone, but it doesn't sound so good for me. It is this way and that way. We tried to distinguish ourselves. When most places, all consultants who I talked to in those days, the first piece of advice they would give was, don't distinguish yourself. If you tell people too much, they have things to not like, they have reasons to discard you. So don't tell them anything. Don't tell them anything until they're in the process. Give them things, but don't give them too much information. That, to me, was disgusting advice, which we didn't follow. And instead we said, well, maybe we'll lose applicants, which we did, in the interest of finding people who really understand us better and seem to be suited to us. So that we did, but personalizing, yes, we personalized because we tried to talk about our own college and what we were really like. And we asked students to talk to us about what they were really like in relation. And I think not everyone does. You lose applications. If you don't have more applications, you're seen as not being successful. But I think there was tremendous success in that. And students liked it, or at least the students who liked it. Not all students liked it.
I think, Ted, I have to share, we did some research on you and read up on some articles. You're really fun to scour about. I've read some of your convocation speeches, which are legendary, really a treat. But I'd like to read a quote from one of your colleagues, Lloyd Thacker, who welcomed you into the Education Conservancy, which maybe you want to comment on. But he said, I have been in the world of college admissions. Now, this was written about 15 years ago. I've been in the world of college admissions for 30 years. And I can say unequivocally that more than any person in this profession, Ted has made the biggest impact, excelled the most, and led the rest of us by an extraordinary example. I never met an admissions dean who could attract all the right students for all the right reasons, like Ted. He personifies the kind of place that the University of Chicago is, and the students love him because of that. And I think that quote really sums up the courage that you had to sort of go against the grain at a time when things were moving into a heavily marketed, public relations kind of experience in the college admissions realm. And I'm curious where kind of the courage and the conviction came from. And I thought maybe you could comment on that, or how the Education Conservancy kind of got you involved and what they were doing.
Well, I'll say a word about Lloyd, who said very nice things about me. And it's not because of that, but I can say that Lloyd was the kind of the hero of our generation in college admissions. He took a tremendous risk. He gave up his job. He went off all on his own. He challenged the powers that be, and he had a real effect. There was not a meeting after Lloyd started the education, there was not a admissions meeting that didn't address his concerns. And I was happy to be part of it early on, his doing. So that's Lloyd. The reason I was what you call courageous was that, could be called foolish, was that I was at home in my place. I mean, give this in your book about the need to feel a fit. I felt a tremendous fit at the University of Chicago. I mean, I'd been educated there in graduate school, but I believed it, I believed in it. And it always thought of itself as different. It was created to be different, created to be an intellectual haven, created a place where people cared more about thinking than about anything else, a place where the undergraduates had this core curriculum that was designed to make them thinking beings. And I thought that was great. I thought that was exactly the way to be educated. I didn't have to be convinced. So being convinced was very easy to be convincing. I've been very lucky in my places. Not a lot of it luck, not pure choice. I worked at Chicago. I worked at the New School, which was a wildly experimental and interesting place. I worked briefly at St. John's College and the Girls College, and now Bard Berlin. All places really think hard about educating rather than, I don't know, making the future leaders of the world, or making people who'll make the most money who can give it back to us, or, whatever colleges do, or make a happy and perfectly constructed community. All about how do we educate people? We push them hard, they'll work hard, they'll have these wonderful opportunities. And I thought, that's exactly right. Those other places can do their own thing, they're good things, but that's what I want. That's what I would have wanted when I was 18. So, it wasn't courage.
Well, I think you personify college fit, and when people say the word fit and trying to find a fit, what Chicago was trying to do, and Bard and these other places, is really making sure that their applicants understand who they are, and that the parents aren't just looking at a list and trying to guide and usher a process because of something that they haven't really studied or learned a lot of.
I think it's unfortunate, for example, that Chicago has gone up so high in the ratings. I think when I left, we were 7th or 8th. We started 5th. We dropped something like 11th. And now, I don't know now, there for a while we were 3rd. And people thought we were better as a consequence. We were no better. Fact of the matter is, I think we're not quite as good as we used to be because of the pressures of having a bigger college, need to please people in the more expected ways. I think it can be a little damaging, that popularity. I'm very happy that at Bard Berlin, where we're utterly unpopular, 200 students, and we have, a few hundred applications every year. And somehow people find us from all over the world because we do something that's so distinctive and different. Liberal arts, Common Core, in Berlin, international. I mean, that whittles away most of the people who are applying to college. Utterly unranked. No one knows we exist. We wish more people did. But yeah, I'm perfectly happy at places like that. I would be utterly, completely unhappy at Chicago admitting 5% of the people who apply. I think that's not a very good game to play.
What would be a potent piece of advice that you might have for parents who are going through this journey right now in this landscape that we have, the college admissions journey?
I think you've said it much all in your book. Everyone won't listen, and not everyone can do it. I mean, you talk about some very important things to do that are very hard to do. Look at yourself. Well, truly look at themselves and change themselves, especially at our age, the parental age. But you say it all. I mean, students should be given a hand in this. Students should wreck their own needs and desires and dreams. They shouldn't be interfered with, though they should be encouraged. Fact of the matter is that, of course, parenting starts immediately. And as I think you say, they're always watching you. They always know what you think. They make you their model. If you behave badly, they'll behave badly. If the parents behave badly in the college application process, students probably will. But that's true throughout their lives. I mean, we make the moral beings they are. And yeah, we should all be better people. That's hard. But what they can do, of course, is listen to your advice and at least check themselves, at least check their worst impulses. At least say, I shouldn't do that, and I won't, because it's for their sake. They'll be better off for it. But, they can't take over the college process because that would be mistaken. It'll lead to unhappiness. They really can't do the work for kids because it's meaningless if the kids don't do their own work. They should be interested. They should have their own opinions. You can't hide your opinions, your real opinions, from your kids. I couldn't hide my opinions from my children. They didn't listen to me. I didn't approve of the way he applied to college. He applied early decision. I don't believe in it. I don't think anyone should do it. I think parents push it for wrong reasons, though they've been encouraged to do it by colleges who are truly at fault. I think parents who say, we'll take advantage of our position, we can pay, we have a lot of knowledge, we can promise ourselves to a college by applying early decision. Let's take advantage of that and disadvantage all those people who can't do it. Let's do it. They're making a mistake. I think it's immoral. I understand why they do it. If a college admits 50% of its class early decision, they've pushed people to do things that they shouldn't be doing. Their fault. But parents should also sometimes be able to resist. No, I think that's wrong. No, that's unfair. No, we can't take advantage of our position that way. A lot of people.
So Ted, I found another article from the Chicago Tribune magazine written in 2008. It wasn't easy to find. An article they wrote about you called The Gatekeeper. And it was written by a woman named Elizabeth Taylor, not the real Elizabeth Taylor, but another Elizabeth Taylor who's still...
Who's our real Elizabeth Taylor to us.
It took a while for me to track it down, but just yesterday I was able to read it. And a quote stood out to me. Back in 2008, Ted, you said this: the worst part of college admissions is dealing with the frenzied ones, usually parents, who seem sometimes to go temporarily insane while marketing their children as if they were products, setting an example of bad behavior by seeking untoward advantages and wanting things for their child which are not in his or her best interest. That just sort of shot out at me. The article, you said it. I have it right. I'll send you a copy tomorrow. But even back then, I want, my question really is, when are you going to write the book? Like, you have so much wonderful reflection and wonderful wisdom looking back on these years of different experiences. And you have a special lens that really is potent and important and valuable in this crazy world we're living in. So, I'm so pleased to hear your reflections. And Jen and I love that you're able to share it with our listeners.
Well, I'm really happy you asked. It makes it easy, whereas writing is hard. You make it look easy, given your productive life. But yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to read that, you wrote convocation speeches that you can find as well, year after year, that really are short, beautiful gems of a gorgeous prose with references to Latin and literature, and they and of themselves are college essays. I mean, they really are. And I don't know how much time it took for you to write those, but they were really special. So if anyone wants to do some good reading, they should Google those, and you might want to revisit them too. You'll be impressed with yourself.
Yeah, no, that was the most fun of the year. Such a happy day, to see all these parents and students arrive, and they're all so nervous and many feeling on, I think one of the things we forget when we think of students promoting themselves is that sometimes they're very self-doubting. And they get to a grand place like the fake Gothic campus of the University of Chicago, and they think, this is a mistake, I shouldn't be here. And I think what they needed at that moment was to be reassured. One, that we don't make mistakes. Two, that it's not so grand and that they're fully as grand enough to take it on. So that was my intention there. And it was a great day because people were basically so happy. Now I miss that.
Yeah. And you missed signing your name 3,400 times.
As many as I could.
It's so fitting that you're at Bard College Berlin now at this stage in your career, and that you found Bard and Bard found you. But you were recently interviewed for Bard, and I also read that, and I thought it was really interesting. In fact, I would imagine what this might look like in U.S. colleges in their application materials. But what you said on evaluating applications was the applicant constructs and we reconstruct a character. It's not fiction, but it is a narrative. And we try to understand the story being told. If you're funny and have a sense of humor, let it show. But we welcome seriousness too. Don't be afraid to get sentimental. We're aiming for a coherent notion of a person. It's a reading exercise for us and a writing exercise for the student. And then you go on to say, a lot of people believe test scores are more important than they are. Here, they truly mean very little. Students probably hear this all the time, but it's true. And it sort of dawned on me, could you imagine if U.S. colleges today, although many of them are struggling to even get ACT and SAT scores together for the pandemic anyway, if they really looked at students the way that you're saying you evaluate them here and the way that you really evaluated them at University of Chicago and probably the new school, there's something that would seem less broken about the way things have become. And it's just very uplifting to be able to read that and your perspective.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a really important thing we do. I mean, granting students that kind of honor to tell their own story, to believe them, to hear it all, pay attention to everything. Test score is always kind of, I think, got in the way. It'll be interesting this year because a lot of people will be operating without test scores for the first time, and they're going to have to pay attention to different things. If they just count up the number of AP classes or the grade point average, they should have to listen, and that may do them a lot of good.
Yeah, it just, I love your words because I think that they're so honest and they so demystify the process. And I think that would kind of quell so much of the anxiety here if the process really were more like the way that you're doing it there. So.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, on the other hand, human things are very mystifying. You know, if you say, I want to understand you as a person, I want to understand you as a future student, there's something that's not as concrete as saying you really should have 1,500 on your SATs and, you know, have 8 APs. Some people are angry because it's so mystifying that we're talking about whole beings and trying to understand them. But I think that's the moral way to do it. I think that's the good way to do it.
Well, Ted, we want to thank you for spending some time this afternoon with us, sharing your observations. And I wish we had hours and hours because this is just really interesting. And I genuinely hope you put some more of these thoughts to paper because I think our world really needs to hear the kinds of things you're saying right now. There's something very comforting, something very, dare I say, old-fashioned about it that I think just really resonates in a world that's so uncertain and that's become so hyper-competitive. So I'm just so grateful that you're here sharing with us. And, you know, if anyone out there listening wants to find Ted, he's hard to track down. There's only snippets of you here and there, but do Google, look at his Wikipedia and you'll find, I don't know if you knew you had a Wikipedia, you do. And you can link onto his convocation speeches and get some of his wonderful writing. But I hope you do write a book. I think it's still in you. And if you need any help, just give us a call. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure having you on.
I really enjoyed it.